In this video, we're going to cover a few extra automation features that Ableton has to offer. One thing you might be interested to know is how to automate parameters inside of third-party plugins. So that means some manufacturer other than Ableton. So if we go into our browser and we look under plugins, so audio effects are all of the plugins that Ableton creates, and MIDI effects and Max for Live and all that, those are all Ableton plugins. However, if you have somebody else's plugin from a different manufacturer that's considered a third-party plugin, and you'll find those inside of this plugins folder under audio units or VST. If I go under VST, I'll go under custom and VST, and you'll see all these different plugin manufacturers and all these different plugins. These are all third-party plugins. Now what I'll use is I'll go under Melda Production because this is a free bundle that these guys give away. You can check the blog post I put about a bunch of free plugins that you can use, and I'll also include a link so you can click on that and go and check out all these free plugins that you can get. Now all these plugins I have inside of here are not free, but this one in particular, this one comes as a bundle. So you'll get a whole bunch of plugins just from this one company. And what I'll do is I'll go under modulation and just grab the M flanger for now. And you'll see that this pops up with this M flanger. And then we can go into our presets and just select some preset that works. So what I'll do is I'll play this Ellie Goulding clip with this on it. Alright, so we'll use this chorus effect. And now what you'll see is, if you look down here, you'll see it says M flanger, and this is just a shell that Ableton uses so that you can have the plugin inside of Ableton. If I hit this little wrench, I'll be able to see the actual plugin and all the different parameters that we can map. The next thing I'll do is I'll hit this little triangle and the window pops out, and you'll see where it says configure. It says to add plugin parameters to this panel, click the configure button. And all I need to do now is click on configure. It opens the window back up, and then I can click on, let's say, the depth, so the dry wet. If I move that around, now when I go back to this window, you'll see that the depth shows up here. And so I can get out of configure and I can move this around now, and it'll move that knob inside of the plugin. So now I can automate this parameter for this particular clip inside of Ableton. And again, if I want to add more features, all I have to do is hit configure, and then we could maybe move the feedback up and down. And so then if I go out of this, now we have feedback and depth that we can configure. And all I have to do now is go back to the audio clip and go into my envelopes. And then you see, because the last thing I clicked on was the M flanger feedback, that's the first thing that shows up inside of my envelopes. So I can go to feedback, or I can go to depth or device on and off. So we'll go to depth, and we can just play around with the different settings inside of depth, so we can have it just move around a little bit. And then if we want to, we can play with the feedback and maybe start low and go high, see what that does. Alright, so that's probably getting a little too crazy with it, so we'll just keep it simple, and we'll just automate that just like that. So now if I flip back to the other view, you'll see that these are going to move around as this clip plays. And if I open up the window again, you'll see that these knobs are moving. So that's how you can automate third-party plugins inside of Ableton and get some really unique and interesting sounds just from doing that. Now, if you remember from the previous video where I showed you how you can adjust the song tempo inside of the arrangement view using the master track, you can do something similar inside of the session view. And what I'll do is I'll copy these clips up, so that way we have two clips going on, or that way we have two versions of it. And I'll move these down so they're both playing the Ellie Goulding, and then I'll drag another set down. So I can highlight all these and option drag them down. So now we'll have 3 sets. And so I can start to kind of play around with this. So the first version sounds like this.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
So we can even get rid of that one right there. And then what I'll do is, let's say for the third one, after we have Ellie Goulding sing a little bit, then we can change the tempo and take it down. So we can change it from, what we'll do is we'll hit Command R to rename this, and we can say, let's take it down to 100 BPMs. So we do 100 space and then type in BPM. And now you see how this play marker turns orange. That just means Ableton knows that it's going to change the tempo anytime we hit the play button on this particular scene. So now we can automate how the global tempo is changing. So I'll play this one before it again.
Come on. Come on.
Now you see how when I go back, so when I hit play on this track originally, it was at 120. And then when I go to this scene and I play it, it turns everything to 100. But if I go back, it stays at 100. So let's say we wanted both of these scenes to be at 120. So then we'll type in 120 BPM. And then same thing for this, 120 BPM. So now anytime I jump back and forth between these, it'll change the tempo and it'll keep these at 120 while it'll keep this one at 100. And the cool thing about doing it this way is that I can even add in a time signature change. So if you want to get that in depth with this where you can add in time signature changes, all you have to do is hit rename and then you'll add in the, let's say we'll do 3/4.
Come on.
So the music doesn't change, but you can see that the time signature did. So what I'll do is I'll rename this one and I'll put in 4/4 and I'll play the metronome as we play these songs. So you'll hear how the metronome and the tempo changes based on the time signature.
Come on. Come on.
So you can hear the accent on the metronome changes because it's playing in 3/4 time as opposed to 4/4. And to make it more noticeable, I can change this to, let's say, 6/8.
Come on.
So you can hear how the metronome got faster and it changed the tempo and the timing of the metronome based on the time signature. So this can be a really fun thing to play around with, and it's a little bit more geared for live sets and performing live with Ableton, but it can still be useful if you're producing. Let's say you have this track and it's at 120, but you're not sure how it would, but you want to see how it would sound if you played it at a slower or faster tempo. Then you can play this first one at 120, have this next one set up for 100, and you can go and A/B them. You can listen back and forth and play them at different tempos and figure out which one kind of sits better for you. And one last thing that I'll show you is something called clip automation. So as you saw, we could automate these scenes by typing in some BPM info and the time signature. But what we can also do is we can have one clip tell another clip what to do. So this clip will tell the next clip what to do, and it only works on clips within one track. So you can't have this clip telling this bass clip what to do, but I can have this bass clip tell the next bass clip what to do. And the way to do that is to go down here in the lower left-hand corner where you see this circle L, and you click on that. So we'll close the envelope box, and we'll close the sample box for now too. And all we need to look at right now is this launch box, not a lunch box, but a launch box. And the purpose for this is to tell the clip how you want it to launch whenever you hit play on it. And there's 4 different modes in here. You can have it trigger, gate, toggle, or repeat. And the default is trigger, which is what we'll use for this example right now. And I'll go back to the Ellie Goulding clip. So if you remember with this clip, we just have it looping the first count of her vocals. And then in the next clip, we have she actually starts singing. So there's no effects or no panning and no automation in this. And it's just Ellie just singing. So what we can have is we can have this first clip playing, and then we can have it trigger to start this next clip. So what I'll do is I'll go into my launch mode, and underneath follow actions, we can have it trigger after 1 bar. We can tell it to trigger the next clip to start playing. So now if I hit play on this, it will trigger this next clip to play after 1 bar. And really quickly, I'll turn off the metronome and I'll reset this to 4/4. And then I'll hit play on this so you can hear it.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
So you can hear that it starts off with that affected sound of her vocals in that one clip, and it plays for a bar, and then it leads into her singing without that looping effect. Now I know that's a relatively short introduction into the use of follow actions and clip launching, but I'll get more into the use of those functions in later videos. I just wanted you to be aware that they exist and a little bit about how it functions inside of Ableton.